Well. Jeannie Mai and Jeezy are getting divorced. I'm not happy about that, but this is relevant to me because in January 2022, I made a video titled Why I'm No Longer Submissive, and the jumping off point for that discussion was Jeannie Mai saying that she wanted to be submissive prior to getting married to Jeezy. So she made that comment in October 2020, I guess, and that sparked me to considering if being submissive was working for me. So we will talk about that and talk about what's happening now, which is that they're getting divorced. I also wanted to make this video, I wanted to make this video in response to my last video and to the news, because I feel like the comments on that video were pretty negative. I think there were some people who got what I was saying and appreciated it. Some people just wrote Bible verses about how submissiveness is correct. Some people just said it's correct. Some people said I was going to get divorced. And one person said it was feminist claptrap, which was interesting to me because I felt like the theory that I proposed, I felt like it was rational. So I was surprised at such negative feedback. And now I feel a little bit vindicated. But before we get to that, hi, I'm Brianna. This channel is about entrepreneurship, but I have nothing to entrepreneur. So last year I was making videos about just some of my thoughts and ideas, and this was one of them. So I'll start off with an update, which is that I am still not submissive, but as I have deconstructed and deconverted from Christianity, I realized that submissiveness is really a Christian or religious concept. So as I am becoming less and less religious, submissiveness is less and less relevant. So at this point, I'm not submissive nor not submissive. I do what my husband tells me to do, and I am building the courage to tell him what to do. It goes both ways. So I'm not like expressly being a submissive partner. And I think that the significance of it when I made the video had to do with where I was in my deconstruction process. I really didn't know that it was a Christian concept, which is why it was surprising to me that so many people responded with verses from the Bible. But now I understand, as I understand about so many things, that as growing up Christian, like, or even in America, so much of the worldview that I have is the Christian view, and I don't even realize that. I think that it's an objective view, but it's not. It's still subjective from Christianity. So there's that. I'm not divorced. I would say that our relationship is even better. I did watch the video last week and it was rough. So I understand why people responded to me negatively. One person asked if my husband knew that I made the video. He did. He has never had an issue with me being honest, but I feel like I wasn't aware of how unhappy I was at the time. And it wasn't because of like the submissiveness thing. I was going through something else and it just was definitely coming through in the video. Hopefully I don't seem like that now. All right, so first I want to talk about what my theory was, which was like sort of the thesis of the video. And that is that women who, like Jeannie Mai, have a desire to be submissive in a relationship after being dominant in the rest of their lives are typically not going to naturally attract a partner who can fulfill that fantasy for them. And I do think it's a fantasy. As I've continued in my healing over this last year and a half since I made the video, I have come to accept that there's just some things and experiences in my life that seem normal that I'm just not going to get to have. In the video, I had said that I put a lot of the blame on my dad not being present, but I understand now that it's not even my dad. I think when you have less than ideal family circumstances, any number of things you could end up missing that aren't necessarily directly related to the parent who logically would have contributed to it. In this case, Jeannie Mai was saying that she is dominant in her business. It sounds like she's a bit parentified in her relationship with her mom, and she had to be like very protective of herself growing up because she had been abused. And so she decided Jeezy was a partner that she could take the submissive role to and trust him to take care of everything else and take care of her and sort of like give her a reprieve from that. I think, if all these bloggers can make baseless accusations or speculations and conclusions, I'm gonna do it too, because I have no information, but neither do they. So I'm just giving my opinion. Of course, I don't know what the truth is, but you know, humor me. I think Freddie I think she didn't respect Freddie, and that was probably one of the reasons she thought she didn't want to have kids, because she didn't like if you already feel like maybe you're the parent to someone or they're not an equal to you, like adding a child as a responsibility is not going to make that any better. So that might have been why she didn't want to have a kid with him, but she probably saw that Jeezy had many more leadership qualities than Freddie did, and by comparison, he seemed like a good partner to her, but there are other things that needed to be considered, in my opinion. So back to the general thesis, I think that if a woman desires to be submissive in a relationship because of being dominant, independent, self-sufficient in other areas of her life, there's a good chance that the person she attracted organically, if she was being herself, is a person who's attracted to a person who's dominant, independent, and self-sufficient, and is the complement to that. Not necessarily like the opposite of that, but the complement of that. She might have been very focused on her career and focused on her business and stuff and like not being emotionally needy. And he's like, great, she's this way. And I'm kind of saying any woman in this position, I can continue, I don't have to worry about her. I don't have to nurture her. And that's why I'm attracted to this relationship. I think it's unrealistic to expect this person who really doesn't need a man to find a nurturing man, because they probably would be more interested in a woman who needs nurturing or who's seeking nurturing from the beginning. So that's the first thing. I just think that naturally you're not going to attract a person that will allow you to enact that dynamic. And because so many women have this dream, I think a lot of women either they find relationships, their relationships keep failing, or they kind of end up in this situation that Jeannie possibly is in. So in my own case, I think in the video I said that my husband was passive. I think my husband is very much a leader. He's very assertive, but there's a lot of things he just doesn't want to be involved in. And when we were dating, he definitely made it clear that he did not want a girlfriend that was going to be very dependent on him, because I think his previous girlfriend was like that. So that's what he wanted. That's why he liked me, because he could not talk to me for a day because he's at a golf tournament, which did happen. And I'm not freaking out because I'm self-sufficient, independent. So then to get married and just do this switch, like, okay, now I'm married, because I was very much like, I'm single so I'm married. So I wasn't allowing myself to be emotionally dependent on him, which I would change if I, you know, were able to do it again at that age. But to just flip the switch and expect him to assume this role that wasn't even his dream is kind of irrational. So this is what I think happened in the case of Jeannie and Jeezy. Of course, I don't actually know. No one really knows that, and we can't trust people who claim they know. But I think that they had a fun relationship, and I think they probably worked really well together as two people focusing on their own careers. Jeannie saw this person as an opportunity to help her to have the experience in life that she wanted to have of being taken care of. So she's like, you know what, he's the one, I trust him, I respect him, I'm willing to give him this gift of submissiveness in exchange for the fantasy of family that I've always wanted. And then they get married, and then she changes because she's married now, but also because they had a baby pretty immediately. They got married in March. They had Monaco in January, I believe. So that always changes the relationship. The dynamics of the relationship, the expectations on each person are increased, because now it's not just making me feel good, it's like practically supporting this child and also like creating lifelong bonds. So I think that was a major ding in her plan, her vision. Secondly, they pretty much had this relationship in the thick of the pandemic. So I think they got together in 2019. We all know what happened in 2020. They got married in March of 2021, which is still very much pandemic. And then they had a baby. And I feel like we weren't really back until 2022. So they're in a sort of like isolated situation. There aren't even as many opportunities because of the pandemic. And then they come out of the pandemic, or as we come out of the pandemic, now there's more things competing for the attention that Jeannie was hoping that Jeezy would direct toward the family. And in addition to that, the reel got canceled. So she went from being this on TV every day, very public, opinionated TV personality, to being a mom in the house. I saw that she was on, I think, Access Hollywood, but as far as I know, she probably doesn't have a job at the same caliber as the reel. So that's also going to change dynamic. If she's playing this role of this opinionated, spunky, self-possessed TV host, however many hours a week, now she doesn't have that at all. So I think that the dynamics really change. And I think they probably both agreed to this dynamic. She was like, I want to be submissive to you. And he was like, hell yeah. But neither of them could anticipate the ways that fulfilling that request would become a challenge. I also don't know if Jeezy has he lived with his babies? Like, is that a new experience for him? Could that be one reason that he felt less satisfied by the relationship? Because now he's got to also give of himself to his child full time. One of the sources said that they had different expectations and values, and that's why they're splitting up. And I think that my theory of the expectation not being true to who they actually were, because you can't be submissive to a person who's not attracted to a person that needs leadership. I think that kind of fits. And then I also heard that they were apart too much and, I guess didn't have enough time together as a family, which true. You want to be submissive to somebody that's not even here. The other thing that I noticed, and if you watch any videos about this, they show like these two Instagram posts, one from Jeezy, one from Jeannie. And while those are snapshots in time, like they, to me, could potentially characterize the attitudes in the relationship. His was a picture of himself that said something like, to focus on where I'm going, to focus on who's coming with me. So I feel like that probably didn't really change. I think he probably was always focused on his career and didn't have to focus too much on who was coming with him, especially given Jeannie's her own like pace in the same direction. All of the extra stuff in the marriage probably became, as things changed, became like a hindrance to that persona, which always existed. And then hers is a video of her praising Jeezy for becoming a bestseller and like modeling, honoring Jeezy to their daughter and having her pray. So very family oriented. And she's praising and pouring into her husband. I think she worked to pour into him and build him up in expectation that he would reciprocate in like love and nurturing. But that's that's like codependent, to be honest, to do things. And I don't know her, so I can't actually say she's codependent, but there's a good chance. I mean, I know that myself, having had that same fantasy, that was my expectation, and I am codependent. But to expect you to be able to do these things for this partner to be loved in return is codependent and is never sustainable, and that might have been what happened. So I feel like it's super unfortunate. I don't want them to get divorced. I think they're very pretty together, but I also know that our healing comes in stages and waves. And I also feel like it's really hard for people sort of over 35 to change. Not only did he get married to somebody from a completely different culture, he also had a baby. So I just feel like those things are hard to adapt to later in life when you're pretty set in your ways, especially as Jeezy has never been married before. And what are the chances Jeannie fell back into the dynamics of her marriage with Freddie? I don't know. But the last thing I want to mention is when you have expectations on people that you don't want, or that you didn't really necessarily agree to. Like, he probably agreed to lead her, but didn't expect her to actually need to be led, because she didn't need to be led to in the first place. I think when people have expectations of you, that can breed resentment. And when you have expectations of people that they cannot meet and won't meet because it's not for them, that breeds resentment as well. And that might be why they are where they are today. So those are my thoughts. I just felt compelled to like come out of the woodwork with everybody else and comment on this update. Hate to see it, but I kind of told you so.